So, hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of What's Next, which is our conversation series for recent high school graduates. So, first of all, I think from all of us, we want to say, congratulations. Yes. Congratulations on taking that next step. In the words of a very, very wise woman, Cynthia Wambua, college is a scam, but education is not. So congratulations on taking this step. And we are here really to teach you how to make the best, how to get the most, and how to finesse this scam system as seamlessly as possible. So it started because Matthew and I,
hello.
We had wanted to collaborate with our respective brands, and we'll take a minute in just a minute to talk about those. Just to collaborate on some project. And I started talking to him about something that Camille, Cynthia, and I were talking about creating something to celebrate the recent graduates and to help the recent graduates move into this next stage of their lives, really. So this all came from that, desire to have something for them that we didn't have for ourselves. So that's why we're here. And we're very excited because we didn't realize just how necessary something like this even was for graduates until we started doing it. So we're just going to all round robin and just introduce ourselves before Matthew and I get into a little bit about the brand. So you're just going to introduce yourself. Just tell us where you're from, where you go to school, what was your major, when did you graduate, or in other cases, did you graduate? Where do you live now? Where do you live now? What do you do? And in true college fashion, you got to give us a fun fact about yourself. So true college orientation fashion, you got to give us a fun fact. So I'll start. My name is Mariah. I'm originally from Chicago, Southside, born and raised, Southside proud, always. I went to Temple University in Philly, like we all did. And a little bit later in the series, because there are going to be several different episodes, not everyone in the conversation will have gone to Temple, but that's how we know each other, is because we all went to Temple University. I graduated in 2019, and now I live in Los Angeles. I live downtown, unfortunately, but I'm getting over it. I live downtown. I was a theater major, and I was with a concentration in acting when I started. But now, living in LA, I'm a writer and a director and a producer, and I'm trying to do more television and film, but not on the acting side, on the production side of things. Mm-hmm. And a fun fact about myself, I speak Arabic. I took it all of middle and high school, so that's really fun. Ooh, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Arabic, yes.
They only taught at my high school. They only taught Arabic and Chinese. So we never got the option to learn Spanish or anything like that.
Incredibly random. I would love at a later date to really deep dive into this because your high school sounds fascinating. Just
I could tell you a story. Well, listen, wait until you read my book, and then you'll hear all about my high school experience.
Mariah, writing a book is going to be the next Shonda Rhimes. And
listen, fingers crossed. All right, so let's move on. Matthew, why don't you go next? Introduce yourself.
I'm going to take it away. My name is Matthew Janis. I grew up in New Jersey, which is why there will always be a little bit of trash in my soul. I went to as well. Philadelphia is just getting trashier and trashier. And I too, basically my trajectory of life is following Mariah Woods throughout wherever she goes. So I went to Temple also as a theater major, which is a psychotic choice. You will come to learn through the discussions that we had. And then I moved to Chicago after graduation, obviously, to follow Mariah and to study comedy at the Second City, which ultimately was just a huge cry for help. And upon spending some time in Chicago. My partner and I then decided to move to Los Angeles right before a global pandemic and shutdown occurred. Been living in LA for about 3 months now.
Wow.
Live in West Hollywood because I'm queer, so obviously.
Okay.
And who am I though? I'm an actor, I'm a comedian, and I am the editor-in-chief of Canned Goods magazine. That's me, Matthew, LA.
Yes. All right, Camille, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Oh my God. Hi, I'm Camille. I am from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, which tends to be loaded information depending on who you are.
When you said it, I knew.
Yeah. It tends to really stir things up when they figure it out. I love everything about that, and I also hate it as well.
That's
and I went to Temple University, just like everyone here. Mm-hmm. I majored in theater with a concentration in musical theater. More loaded information, depending on what you're into.
The way we are.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay.
But yeah, I am an actor and writer, and I don't know. I have had many jobs.
Haven't we all?
I tend to work a few at a time. I may have taught someone a playwriting class, or sold them some luxury soaps, or maybe a crop top. I'd be out here serving customers.
Right.
I am living in Philly right now, so just a little bit from where I grew up, not too far. Just working all these jobs, living not right now, aggressively unemployed during the pandemic. I'm going to get some business cards made that say Camille Young, aggressively unemployed.
That's okay.
And a fun fact about me, when I was a baby, I ate so many carrots that my hands and feet turned orange.
Wait, is that a real thing that can happen?
Yeah, apparently I was not with the baby food, and the only thing I was with was the carrots. It was I only will eat the carrots. So my parents, being first-time parents, I think they could have tried a little harder, but they were like, great, carrots, all she eats. Carrots is what she's going to get. And my hands and feet turned orange, and it was just the carrots. So.
We love parents. They do their best.
I know struggle. That's my fun fact. I know struggle.
Remember that episode of That's So Raven where Chelsea drinks so much carrot juice that her skin turns orange?
Yes. I said I know that. This is a very special episode for me.
Literally.
Wait, parents have a lot of, I think, vitamin A. Do you have really good eyesight?
My eyesight is stunning, and everyone in my family wears glasses.
Okay. Look at that. So maybe they made a couple points.
Thank you, Mom and Dad, I guess.
They made a couple points. All right, Cynthia, go ahead.
All right. My name is Cynthia Wambua. I grew up in Ambler, Pennsylvania, where if you're coming from Philly and you go north and you don't stop, eventually you'll hit it after an hour. And then I went to Temple University in Philadelphia. And then after graduating, I was like, let's mix it up a little bit. So now I live in New York City, and I work at a tech startup, writer, filmmaker. I'm a musician.
There you go.
I'm an actor, I guess. Ooh, those days.
You better
a minute. It's been a minute. But yeah, I guess I'm all of those things. And I'm a software engineer, I guess. Legally. Diploma.
You vary that.
Sounds incredibly chic.
Fun fact.
I was waiting for it. I was like, she builds computers.
She literally can do anything on the computer. So
I guess fun fact about me, similar to Camille, when my little sister was born, I was so mad that I wasn't getting the attention because I became the middle child, that I went on a hunger strike. And when my family went back to Kenya to visit our, extended family, they had to ship literally crates of Pediasure because that's the only thing I would eat, essentially.
Oh, you were deficient.
That is
how old were you to declare a hunger strike?
I think I started at 2, and then it didn't end until I was 5.
Cynthia, you're a Libra, right?
Yes, I'm a Libra sun. I think I'm a Sagittarius rising and a Taurus. No, I'm a Taurus rising and a Sagittarius. I can never pronounce it right. Sagittarius.
Sagittarius.
But that's my moon.
But yeah, I'm a Libra. About you. About
I'm a Libra through and through.
All right. Okay, so like I was saying, just a little bit more in depth into what the series is going to talk about. And then I'll talk about Textured Air, which is my brand, which we all contribute to. And well, not Matthew, but and then Matthew's going to talk about Canned Goods Magazine. So we, again, this was really a series for, recent graduates. We want to get into the nitty gritty of things that people never talk about, like money, very specifically money, about the culture, about what it's really like to be a part of a marginalized group going into these kinds of situations. Because we feel like oftentimes when you hear these kinds of things, you hear it from people who have already been through it, or people who have never been through it and can only speak in such generalized terms, or people who have been through it and are leaving out, I had this, like, so many parts of it. So they're telling you these success stories that aren't the full picture. So we really wanted to be that for, incoming college freshmen, and just give you all the things that sometimes you are embarrassed to ask. And so when I started Textured Air, like just last summer, we really are about to come up on a year since we started this, journey to this a brand we call for the metamorphosis of Black women. So we want young Black women to have a space where they can, come and grow like with us, because we're trying to build this community of Black women who are still growing, who are still discovering, because I feel like discovery has been the most important part of my life, and it's the most important part of what I'm doing. And so we want to expose them to all these other experiences that Black women are having, all these other opportunities that Black women are providing, and are having all these other things that Black women are doing to better themselves, to discover more about themselves. And so much. So it is a lifestyle brand in that way, but most importantly, it's about discovery, because we feel like when we were young, we didn't really have that to look at. And when we have it now, it's packaged in such a way that you don't still see the growth. You see, this is how I did it, And so we want to, talk about those middle stages. And so that's what we're doing. And a lot of our content and a lot of the content that we're planning is geared toward that. So you can you can always look us up on Instagram and on Twitter at Textured Air. This video will be on our YouTube page, and probably also on the Canned Goods Magazine YouTube page. And so you can subscribe to those and see about, all the other videos, all the other content that we're planning. You can visit our website, texturedair.com, where you can find out about this and you can see all the other things that we're writing, podcasts and other things that we're launching, video content, and a lot of, we love a good playlist. So you can always find that there. And really it's just this space for Black women. So for me, I'm just like very excited that this is one of the things that we're adding to that, because it was something that I didn't have. And I was always the kind of person, like I said, I'm a Sagittarius, and I just don't like to ask for help. So I was like, if somebody is not going to tell me, I'm just going to go, I'm going to figure it out. And it took a lot of embarrassing and probably avoidable, things happening for me to find my footing in college and for me to find my footing in my adult life. And I know a lot of people go through that, but again, a lot of it was avoidable if I'd had someone who I could have gone to, or who would have just answered those questions. So that's what we're doing here today. And so, Matthew, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like for you, before we get into it, can you tell us about Canned Goods Magazine?
Right. I think you said it so well, first of all, like the purpose of what this is. This is about talking about transition, and we're talking about college because we're addressing recent high school graduates who are college bound or not college bound, just transitioning to another phase of life. But So many of us are in a time of transition right now. And frankly, the world is changing in really critical ways. So I think that talking about transition and change is a really relevant thing right now. Yeah, and that's what Canned Goods Magazine is all about. Canned Goods is an online magazine, and it's a place for all things relevant, but also timeless. And why I'm so excited to be collaborating with Textured Air right now is because right now is, in case you haven't heard, viewers, is an extremely critical time to be uplifting, serving, and defending the livelihood of Black people. So collaborating with Textured Air seemed really obvious to me because I saw what Mariah was doing with the brand and then saw what Mariah and the other gals were doing with the brand and the content they were creating. And it was like, cool. So that's what my next collaboration is going to be, because that's frankly, anything that's not serving Black people right now is like not really relevant, because that to me is like what is so critical in this moment. So that's like how this collaboration, why this collaboration is so critical right now. And I think that Mariah really expertly kind of talked about, you know, what our goal is here. So I say, like, let's just freaking get into it.
Okay. All right. So I think we should start at like the beginning. Like, let's talk about picking a major and like classes and activities you actually like. And how do you find your path within your major? You know? So whomever.
Can I jump in and start?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So to me, literally, it felt like it was my absolute destiny to be a musical theater major from probably the age of like 12 or 13, because when I was that age, I started taking singing lessons and my teacher told me that going to college and studying singing and dancing and acting was something that you could do and get a degree for. And I was like, cool, like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that and I'm going to be a Broadway star. It felt very simple and very easy. And that just kind of like was the trajectory that I took throughout high school. Like high school was like, cool, I know what path I'm on. I like applied for and auditioned for colleges. I chose Temple because it was like the right fit. It was like close enough to home. The money was right, which is something that we'll get into, but situation.
See, I think also with us, and I don't know, Cynthia too, if you can speak to this, is that you know, we a lot of times with you know, us theater majors, we kind of know like very early on in high school in our careers, like what
comment no.
Really?
It's very common to like know that this is what, even if your family doesn't support it, like I feel like we just like there's that energy in you. And I do blame Glee for this. I blame Glee for many problems in my life.
Glee made me like I am. Like I saw myself as Rachel Berry, which is extremely problematic.
Oh, problematic, especially you know, the downfall of Leah Michelle is something I did not see happening this year. However,
I saw it happening at some point. Maybe not this year. But I saw it happening.
Camille can see the future. I don't know if y'all know. But so I think like I agree. Like for me, I was also like very young, very obsessed with like musical theater. You know, oddly enough, even though I never learned to sing and I cannot dance, I really am such an embarrassment to other Black women with rhythm.
I've never heard you sing. Do you sing?
I don't sing at all. I did sing when I was in our town. I did sing when I was in our town because I had to.
God, so true.
Our town.
Truly.
So everyone watching, I was in our town in our university's production of the show. I was one of 3 Black people in the entire show, which is another thing we'll get into. But I like I knew very early. I thought I was going to be on Broadway. I thought I was going to be in Wicked. I thought I was going to, you know, do all these wonderful things. And then I discovered, girl, you can't do that. Like you don't sing. So I was like, okay, I'll go to college and then I'll study acting. Because that's really where my joy is. You know, that's where my joy was at the time. Now, after going through 4 years of college, that did change. But for me, I was like, okay, then I'm going to start picking classes that really prep me for what I feel like will be my ultimate goal, which is going to graduate school. And I thought I was going to go to Yale. I thought I was going to go to Juilliard. I thought I was going to go to, you know, one of those graduate acting programs where people come out of it and they're like, oh, you graduated from there. Because there are acting programs like that. And that was only because because of Glee, ever since I was in like the 8th grade, my dream was to go to NYU. My dream was to go to NYU. I had my heart set on living in New York City because I'm from Chicago.
I was like obsessed with ending up living in New York.
Right.
And honestly, there's still a part of my soul that I cannot tell if it's just like this like inner child wanting that.
I think like a lot of it is with that.
Me too. I wanted to go to
New York. And part of me is like, well, I need to live in New York. Will I feel, I won't feel that I'm fulfilled till I've lived in New York. And I don't know what that says about me. But I would also like to say,
I think it says a lot about our childhood.
Maybe at a later date we will. Yes. And maybe at a later date we will discuss the way that college and college theater programs strip Black people of their joy. But let the record show that Mariah is a fantastic actress.
So I've been told. Don't ask a certain person about that. But I thank you. Y'all know exactly who I'm talking about too. But it's okay. The point that I'm like making, I think also it just needs to be talked about the way New York is romanticized to young children.
Dirty.
Yeah. Because I wasn't even a theater major or anything, but I was like, I need to go to New York. And then now I'm in New York and I'm like, it's been a while since I've seen my friends and the rats at Herald Square Station.
Woo! Like that's don't even get into the rats. But so if you guys also, Camille and Cynthia, want to jump in on this, talking about how you got there and picking your classes.
Yeah. So I guess I had like kind of a different-ish experience. I always did theater like my whole life, but any like documentation of like what I want to be when I grow up for most of my life, I probably wrote down like journalist. I was always saying like, I want to have a magazine. I want to like, and like around at some point in high school, like toward the end, it was like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to like give up this thing that I've been doing for so long. Like maybe that's some sign that like theater is the thing. But I think that really speaks to like, you can change the plan. Like you don't.
Yeah.
But I will say it several times. It's the first time I'm saying it, but I will say it several times throughout the series. College is very, very expensive. And you wouldn't pay a lot of money for a shirt that you didn't like. So why are you going to pay that much money for an experience that you're not going to just like love?
I also think it needs to be said that like at 18, most important, I have that too. So 3 things. Number 1, I didn't know anything when I was 18. Number 2, it should be illegal. The United States government should be charged with crimes for allowing me to take out a loan at 18 when I had no credit. Number 3, I think there's also the issue at 18 of you thinking this is like it's now or never, it's do or die. Everything happens in like ultimatums. Everything happens in extremes. You don't realize that you can change your path, and so you get blinders on about this one thing you've known your entire life instead of. And so you have this set plan, you have this set schedule, and you don't even realize that like so much about you is going to change in college, and if you fight that, it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it so much harder if you fight those changes like I did at every turn. Like I remember, and I'll just say this one thing, and then I'll just let you go. I let you because I want to hear about you, Cynthia, because you have a very different experience from all of us. Because Cynthia doesn't have a BA. Cynthia has a BS. So when I
have a BA, but we'll get into that.
Oh, okay, never mind.
We'll get into that.
So I think like I remember when I didn't get into NYU, because I completely bombed the audition because I was so afraid that I started crying. And then I got into my safety schools in New York, which is the New School for Drama and PACE. And then they sent me my financial aid letter. And for me, that was a very, very important thing because like flat out, like my mom is a single mom, like, and I've talked about this a lot. Like I lost my dad when I was very young. And so like, she's like had to support 4 children by herself. And so like, she was like, listen, you're going to have to figure this out because I can't do it. She's like, I can't pay college tuition and support 3 other children who still have to live here. So, so when they sent me my financial aid letter, the New School for Drama, which at the time in 2015, when I got that letter, was running, and so it's definitely gone up. It was running about $70,000 a year. They gave me a financial aid package of $1,500.
You're kidding.
No.
At that, like, I feel like at that point, it's like, well, you may as well just give me nothing because $1,500 doesn't even scratch the surface of 70,000.
I remember, actually, I also applied to NYU, but I applied to their School of Engineering.
Right.
And I got in because, I mean, Black woman getting into computer science. One, I did have the credentials to get in. So anybody that says I got in on affirmative action, false.
Period.
But
exactly.
Also, I know a lot of schools are trying to diversify their STEM majors, henceforth computer science, because I know even at my experience at Temple, I was the only Black woman, let alone woman, in most of my classes of like 30 students. So I applied to NYU. I got in. I got my financial aid package. When I say that, John came back and said, you'll need to take out a Parent Plus loan of $57,000. Mind you, my parents told me from the jump because like they had to pay for my older sister's education out of pocket because of immigration reasons. From the jump, but like senior year of high school, my parents were like, you're funding this. Good luck. And that was it. So I saw the paper and my mom and my aunt were home. And I was like, Mom, you want to take out a loan for $57,000? And she laughed and said, no. And then I said, denied. I did not accept it. Because I was like,
that's been a denial. Like, why would you do that to us?
It was like $57 for the Parent Plus loan on top of like the other like federal unsubsidized and subsidized loans and everything. And I think even with that, I still would have had to taken out a personal loan only for my freshman year. Only for my freshman year.
Yes, but this gets back into what I was talking about which is that I was at this point where I was so crushed by that I felt like my dreams were slipping away from me, that I was about to go to Wells Fargo, who are criminals, I need to add, Wells Fargo, and take out a loan for $80,000 so that I could go to the New School for Drama. I, at 18 years old, was going to go and take out a loan for $80,000 so that I could go to college because I was so dead set on this idea that I had had in my head for my entire life.
So what stopped you?
What stopped me was I got some sense. I got the letter. Well, what happened really in reality, it came down to I got 2 acceptance letters April 30th. No, I had gotten them long before, but I had not read them until April 30th. One of them was from the University of New Hampshire, and the other was from Temple. Now, the University of New Hampshire had offered me so much money, but then Temple hadn't offered me as much money as the University of New Hampshire. I was not interested in moving to New Hampshire. I don't do small towns. I'm from Chicago. I don't do.
I can't imagine you at a small town.
I have never fucked with it. So what I did was my guidance counselor at the time was like, okay, so now you got to barter. Now you got to call Temple and be like, can you match this? And I did, and they did. And on May 1st, that was how I had decided that I was going to go to Temple, because the offer, it literally came down to on decision day, me saying, okay, Mariah, I know you dreamt this in your entire life. And then I was like, okay, how close is Philadelphia to New York? Because it never even occurred to me how many times in my college career that I would be going to New York on the fucking mega.
Right.
It's so
close. But you don't think that when you're 18. So everyone else on decision day was so happy, and they're going around and they're like wearing their shirts around school. And I'm just like,
mad.
I'm like, my dreams have been crushed.
Yeah.
And it sucks that that's the kind of system we live in. But I think that just goes and that really just drives home my point of like, you got to let it happen. You can't fight this change at every point. Because imagine where I would be in my life if I had what's 8 times 4, $240,000 in student loans.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Minimum. And that's before interest.
You say it like
my mind just went numb.
Yeah.
My mind just went numb.
I also want to say that you don't have to pick a major. Like you don't. Like I said, I want to say it again. Yeah, because like now you're just playing around. You're just playing around with a lot of money, and it's like
literally.
I know so many people who wish they would have just taken the time to figure things out or take gen eds while they really figured out what they wanted to do instead of spending a year of time or 2 years of time or 3 years of time studying something that they really like realize in the middle of it that they weren't passionate about. And that's so okay.
Oh yeah. Because I realized about a year and a half into my major, I thought I wasn't passionate about computer science, and in reality, the program, not good. Because now I've actually been teaching myself coding languages and just doing like little like practices on the side, like for fun during quarantine.
Right. For fun. This is what Cynthia does for fun. Everybody.
I literally like taught myself Python last week.
Screaming.
Yeah.
But okay, so high school, I did theater, I did piano. I was the piano accompanist for our choir. I was the only one for about 3 years. So like I loved playing piano. I also did violin, and I was the president of our orchestra club my senior year of high school. Like I was into music and everything. And then I taught myself guitar senior year. Mm-hmm. So when I came to college, I was like, oh, like maybe I'll do piano performance. And I was like, oh, that'll actually be fun. It's something I'm passionate about. I do want to like learn new skills. Like it'll be great. And then my parents were like, we ain't got no money. So then I was like, okay.
Like that.
And then they kept, because it's also that immigrant thing. They were really pushing for a more STEM major because for them, it was like, they want to make sure that their child is secure. It wasn't like they wanted me to think I'm throwing my life away, but they wanted to at least have some sort of peace of mind, especially since they crossed 2 oceans to get over here.
Yes.
And go through decades in the immigration system in the US, which that should be another episode for another day. But so when it came time to pick my major, I was like, okay, I like music, but I also took chemistry, bio, physics, and calc. So I know I'm capable of something in STEM, but since I'd already taken those classes and I knew I didn't really like those things, I was like, maybe like not do these as major. And then my friend was like, what about computer science? And then I did like one coding practice and was like, sure.
So then I want to ask you, and I want to ask everybody, I want to ask you, Cynthia, so then how did you find creativity then inside of your major? And how did you find that joy, even though it was something that you had decided really at the last minute and it was, it wasn't what you thought you were going to do because you were doing something your parents wanted you to do? And you guys can also answer too. I want to hear, absolutely. I want to hear from you guys.
I think it was like the first year was definitely like the groundwork of like the basic like math classes, statistic classes, coding classes. So it was like very by the book what I was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So I still had a passion for music. I still had a passion for theater. So I was like, okay, like let me see like what other things I can incorporate with this. But I wanted to explore that. So actually the reason why I don't have a BS in computer science and I have a BA is because I went to guidance. I changed my major over to BA. It was a whole thing with my dad because he thought I was getting like an arts degree. And I was like, no, it's still computer science. It's just Bachelor of Arts. But like that whole thing, like he could not comprehend because in Africa, that's not how that works.
Right.
But because I had opened up those electives for other things, I actually ended up getting a certificate in French and a certificate in film, which actually worked out in the end because I work with a lot of French people now.
Yeah.
And so I can understand, I could read it, I can comprehend it. Which actually was like great on me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wanted to ask you, Camille, too, about that, like about just because you talk so much about, making sure that you're getting the most out of your college experience because it's a lot of money. So then how do you, find that creativity?
Right. So like I was just going to say, everything that Cynthia was saying, like she learned so many things about what she likes to do because she did a lot of different things and based on just like simply being interested in them.
Yeah.
Really tailor the experience. Like this is the first time you get to have all these choices about what you want to do and how you want to spend your time. There's like power in that. So don't waste it. Don't try and take the like easier way out. Hey, sometimes a semester is hard, and if you need a class where you can get an easy A, do what you need to do for your sanity.
Absolutely. I support that 100%.
Right. Yeah. But maybe don't necessarily, if you have some elective credits or something, really try and take a class that's something that you're kind of interested in, something that could really spark something in you could maybe take you in a different direction. I think a fun trick, the more specific the class title is, the more you might enjoy the class.
Yes.
Avoid your vague, like the discovering music or like,
oh my God. Or the environment.
Like,
oh my God.
Environment, right. Like avoid things that sound so big and weird in general, because that's what you're going to get. And you're not going to be able to focus in on a lot of things. I took classes that had really long, silly names with semicolons and long titles, but it was like, I knew what I was going to get. Like, I knew when I went to autobiographies of women in radical social movements, which is like, that's everything after the semicolon. There's like more in front, but I knew what I was going to get into. And I met like-minded folks, and like really it sparked an interest in me and got me reading some of my favorite books and things like that. So like, I don't know, really feel the power that comes with getting to make all those choices for the first time.
Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. I think go ahead, Matthew. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask, Camille and open up to everyone what your favorite course that you took.
Oh, that's a good one.
Major, but it doesn't even have to, whether it was in your major or outside of your major.
Mine was outside of my major, actually.
I think mine was
a gen ed. That was outside of my major.
What was it?
It was, so it wasn't fun because of like the people or the teacher. The teacher was great, but it was race and ethnicity, but specifically the name was very long and specific, but specifically like immigration in the United States of America, like the history of immigration, which I was interested in, you know, being from immigrant parents. I knew how it was now, but I wanted to learn more about like the actual system, like how it originally started, how it evolved over time, what happened in the last like 50 years. And it was a great class.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah. I think mine was, and this actually for me was really big because I feel like it was me finally giving in to what, you know, is the most important thing in my life. And if you know me, you know, nothing is more important to me than hip hop, than rap music. Like you'll never meet anyone who can talk as long as I can about it. So
really can.
No, for real though. Like it doesn't matter what it is, how obscure it is. Mariah is here for it. But for me, I took the hip hop class that's like very famous at Temple, and like we had this, we were focusing in the class on like hip hop as a form of dissent in politics and throughout American history since the 70s, which again is like one of those very specific kind of classes. But then you realize how important this music has been to this movement and how important it's been to like culturally, like, you know, how people are always saying like it was a cultural reset. That's truly what hip hop is at every turn in American history. And so that course really kind of like, it kind of opened me up again, like more than I was. It kind of forced me to like take the blinders off and like, you can't just do theater, because like we always talk about the problem with like being a theater major, and the problem with like people who do theater is the bubble that you're in. But theater encompasses so much. It's math, it's science, it's hip hop, it's music, it's life. And so if all you ever do is this and you don't open it up to let in other things, then your work is going to be it's going to be so bland because it isn't influenced by anything.
Bland, yes, bland, and just like uninformed. Creative work that doesn't have an opinion on the world is just like, you may as well just be doing a production of Our Town in a void forever.
Okay, wait. So then, what was your favorite? What were your favorite classes, Matthew and Camille? I don't know which one of you wants to go first.
Sure. I'd say it's a tie outside of my major, because I actually like I loved being in a creative major and flexing my creative muscles, and like within my major, my favorite was senior year taking a cabaret workshop class.
Oh, the cabaret class is always so good.
Yeah, that was like an extremely specific skill to hone. And that is where I started doing stand-up comedy, really, because my cabaret routine became a character piece and became me doing stand-up and singing in my stand-up. And now doing musical comedy stand-up is what has been my thing. And that's like what I am doing and what I want to do. Not that I still don't want to be a movie star.
Of course.
But I think that outside of my major, my senior year, I absolutely loved taking French class both semesters of my senior year, because it is something that, again, was just like a specific thing to be studying, something that brought me joy. So I was excited to do the homework and practice French and come to class. I wanted to show up. I wanted to be involved. I love France and friendship of any kind. So it was exciting to me. And most of all, it was such a great thing to have in my senior year amidst the anxiety and uncertainty of what's next.
And we'll get there.
Okay, to name drop
oh, he said the name of the thing, guys.
Yeah, but it was joy, and it was just for me. It filled my soul. It wasn't to serve, and of course, everything serves you as a person. But
it's different in college, though. It is. Yeah, because a lot of the times it can feel like that.
Cynthia even said, like, it's useful that she knows French. It's actually useful in her job. And for me, that could actually be useful to me. But it wasn't even about it being useful. It was like, I had the opportunity in those semesters to fit in something that was just for fun. And honestly, in college, because of the liberal arts curriculum that is built and because of the general education courses that you've got to take, there are opportunities to fit in things that are just for fun, where you still have to do homework and you still have to get a grade and take tests and stuff, but
it's still fun.
It fills you.
And it's important.
Yeah, like actually for French, I took it just for fun and because I liked the teachers and it was something just for me. And then I just happened to get a job where I happened to work with a lot of people that happened to be French. And so it just kind of worked out eventually.
And here's the thing, because college will at several points rob you of your joy.
Several.
The amount of mental breakdowns.
The amount, and I do want to get into that. I do want to hear from you, Camille, about what your favorite class was outside of your major.
Oh, yeah. So I already shouted out Living for Change, autobiographies of women in radical social movements. But another one was, I think it was called The Global Crisis. It was like a world history gen ed. And it's definitely not, it's an acquired taste. It's not a class that I think everyone would like. It's not a class that everyone did like.
Right, of course.
But like, I chose a creative major, right? But I really liked like school my whole life. I like sitting down and taking notes. I like memorizing facts and taking a test. And so like I took a lot of writing intensive classes, things that kind of spoke to my interests that were outside of this thing that I have now chosen to dedicate my entire life and time to. So it felt nice to like, I don't know, it just made it feel like I was being like a well-rounded person. Like I was feeding all the different parts of myself with these classes that I got to have a little bit more choice in.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. So I want us to talk then about that, since we're talking about, choice and things like that, about just transitioning. We all made this choice to move away and go to college. And I think something that was very important for me, and we've all talked about just, separately, about community being so very important. So I want to hear like any advice you have about what it's like to leave home, to go to a much larger community, and how to not lose yourself when doing that.
I'll go first only because I actually commuted in college. So I didn't actually leave home until after I graduated. But in terms of community, I know like, because my school was close to where Temple was, I actually knew a lot of people that were going to Temple. So I wasn't scared of not having a social life while commuting. I knew people that lived on campus that I could always like sleep over their house in case I needed to for like a night class and things like that. And also I was really close with my coworkers at the theater at the time. So I had a sense of community with that. Going to college is almost like just going to a different high school, which is another thing too. If you need to save money like I did and commute, if you have a friend that you could like stay the night with, like maybe a night or two a week, if you need to take like night classes and stuff like that, that's a huge, huge help.
That's how Cynthia and I actually met, because we are her friend, and her friends lived in that house, and they were our mutual friends. And so she would just be like bumming it on the couch. And so
while we were both sleeping on this pull-out
And you want to know why I was sleeping on the pull-out couch? Because I was having a mental breakdown and I couldn't be alone. So I went over to my friend's house, and we sleep on me and Cynthia did it all of senior year. Me and Cynthia both on that pull-out couch. But like we used to do this. So it'd be like mini sleepovers, because sometimes you need to sleep over with your friends. Because sometimes, especially if you live alone, and for those of us who have actually lived alone, we can totally speak to this, because I know Camille has, and Matthew, you have. Like, and we can get there about how sometimes being alone and that silence can be scary, and you need to call on your people. You need to have people that you can call on. You're like, girl, I'm just going to come sleep on the couch. They're like, oh, Cynthia's here. Girl, I don't care. Me and Cynthia will share the bed. It's not even like that with us. We'll share the bed. I'm on my way with my blanket. I'm in my bonnet. I'm coming in my pajamas. And I
had a thing of pajamas at their apartment too. So like sometimes I would just end up being stuck, or I'd study for too long and I didn't want to take the train back because it was super late.
Right.
I would just walk in. Like, they gave me a key eventually.
Yeah, she got a key. And I knew where the spare key was. So sometimes I just show up. So the point is, and we can, I cut you off, I believe, Cynthia, because you were talking about commuting. But the point is like, that's just like, sometimes it's like you just need to, it's so important to have a community. But, getting into
especially while commuting. Yeah. And I think it's also too, if you want to commute to a school where you don't have a lot of friends going into it, it doesn't mean that you won't make friends. Like, I still made a lot of friends through classes. I still made a lot of friends through different after school clubs, different activities that I did. So it's possible to find your community if you're commuting. Just know that for the first couple of weeks, it's going to be hard, but know that you're not alone. It's hard for everybody, whether you're living on campus or not.
So let's talk about that first couple of weeks, because the welcome week burnout is real. Like, I want to talk about how you do not have to go. And this is just my advice. And then I definitely want to hear you guys' input on it, because I'm sure, Camille, you have thoughts about welcome week. I'm certain you do. So I really want to hear it. But you do not have to go to every event. You do not have to eat every meal with your new roommate or roommates because they are the friends that you gave. Do not get the phone number of people whose phone numbers you don't want to get because you think you might hang out later, because you ain't got no friends like me who came all the way from Chicago and I had never been to Philly. And I was going to a school where people were coming from outside in the suburbs and they had gone to high school together, kindergarten together. Like, people knew each other, or at least they knew the area. I didn't know nobody but my roommate, and that's only because we met over the summer. And so I came in and I'm like, I just need to attach myself to these people, even though I, as a person, really love being alone, because I was like, I'm missing out. I cannot stay in my room. I cannot get my thoughts together and center myself and figure things out for myself, because I need to be out there experiencing college. Girl, stay at home. Stay at home sometimes. You don't got to eat pizza every night just because you can. I'm sorry. I don't want to rant. But don't eat pizza every night.
We celebrate rant culture in this house.
Don't eat pizza every night. Please.
My experience with Welcome Week was being in the dorm and deciding we're all friends, and just making so many friends who maybe a week later I wasn't friends with, and then going to classes and making friends with people. And it's I don't know. My take on finding community was that it's totally trial and error.
Oh, absolutely.
And you'll start hanging out with people and give yourself the grace to be if I meet these people during that first weekend when I move in, or that first week in class, and we're hanging out, and then later down the line, it just feels like that relationship is not serving me anymore.
Right,
or
absolutely.
Friendship is not really working anymore, because once we started going to classes, we're not seeing each other as much. Don't be afraid to take on friendships, and don't be afraid to let them go.
And I think that's very important.
It's really great.
I think let it ebb and flow. Let things
absolutely
come and go. And like Mariah said, don't stress for a minute about doing what you want to do. If one sec you want to hang out with these folks, and then the next you want to be alone, just go with your own flow. Let it be what you want it to be. I don't know. It's hard to predict how things are going to unfold, but
yeah,
give yourself some grace.
Absolutely, that's so important.
Don't go into it. Don't go into it thinking that you know how to do it, right? This is something, this is new. You've never done this before.
Yeah.
Most likely the friends that you've had your whole life are friends that are of circumstance, friends from school, friends from situations that you're just put in because you're a kid and you don't get to choose where you go all the time and whatnot. That's really like, that's kind of where I messed up. Like I had a really rough time transitioning, and it took me a really long time to find my people, which was a huge shock to me because I never had that was never an issue for me. Like I always had friends. I was always in a group. But I can remember my mom like being so nervous for me as it was getting closer to go, and I didn't understand. And she was like, you have been in a group, you've been in a tight knit group, and it's just not going to be like that. And to her, I was like, no, I'm going to go and like find my new group, and we're going to be friends forever, and it's going to be fine. And I just spent a lot of time alone in the beginning. I think what Matthew was saying about like a lot of college is really taking stock of like how you're feeling.
Yes, absolutely.
Because like I said, you have all this new power and all these new choices that you get to make. And it was like, I was hanging out with certain people and it didn't feel right, but I was like, these are the people I should be hanging out with, right? Like they like what I like, and you're changing the whole time. So in terms of welcome week, try new stuff.
Absolutely.
Try stuff that you think you might have an interest in, and just the whole time you're doing it, be gracious with yourself. This is something new. Everyone else is in this position.
Yes.
And everyone's situation is going to be different. It was so hard for me watching other people have friends, like find friends so quickly. And I was like, what have I done wrong? And it was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I just haven't met my people yet.
Yeah.
It's better to wait than force it. I think.
Oh my God.
I think another thing too is also your community doesn't have to be people you meet at college. You can have a community outside of college.
Oh, absolutely.
I know a lot of people that were commuters that like for me, my main community the first few years of college was my job. My friend, her main community was her church and like her church youth group. Like it doesn't necessarily have to stem from the college you go to. For a lot of people, like for me, college can literally just be a school. If you don't want that 100% like college experience that they always advertise, that's okay. You don't need to. I went into college knowing that college was probably not going to be the best 4 years of my life. And I was okay with that.
If you go to a school in a city as we did.
Yes. And we should talk about that too.
For outside of.
Right. And so then that community. So then talking about that community, about like the community that you exist in, like we went to school in North Philadelphia, and it's very problematic about Temple's place in that community.
North Philadelphia is a predominantly Black area of Philadelphia. Philadelphia has, I think, one of the highest Black populations in any of the major cities within the United States. And Temple University is essentially gentrifying that area and has pushed out a lot of its residents that have lived there for decades. In order to make way for student housing and make it seem safer, when in actuality, you're just pushing out people. And they also just came out with the most outrageous statement for a school within North Philadelphia, like, as I said before, is a predominantly Black neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think it would be, I believe it is fair to say, to categorize Temple as a predominantly white institution.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
For our listeners / viewers, Temple recently released a statement in light of
some racist comments that had been discovered.
Students were coming forward and exposing that some other students, incoming students and current students, are racist and have done and said really harmful things. So those things were exposed, and Temple's response was, first, we're going to look into this. And then after that, well, we protect these students because they have the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, which, true, under the First Amendment, you can say whatever you want. But our problem, I believe I can speak for us when I say that our problem and many people's problem is that if the code of conduct protects these students, well, then the code of conduct clearly needs to change, because these students, racist students, being able to freely, go to school here and exist within the community of North Philadelphia, which is predominantly Black, is harmful to that community as well as other students and other students of color within Temple University. So it's fucked up for Temple to be like,
absolutely,
no, we're not going to do anything. We can't really kick them out.
And that's another thing too about Temple being a predominantly white school was, I went to Temple thinking, if it's in North Philadelphia, then I probably won't be the only Black kid. But I went and I was like, no, it's still a lot of white people. And where I grew up was a lot of white people. So I wanted a school that was a bit more diverse, and it was more diverse than where I grew up. But because it was a predominantly white school, I was like, oh no. And then even being there, I was like, oh no, but you're pushing people out of their community, and you're making it's almost like a students versus community members there, because the students had a type of weird feeling towards people that have lived there the whole entire life. So
stigma. Can I ask you all, what was, if anything, what did people tell you about North Philadelphia and about going to school at Temple and living there? What did people tell you about it? Because what people told me was Temple, North Philadelphia, it's really dangerous there. You have to be really careful. Like, I believe that me going into Temple with that mindset was harmful to Black people who lived there and other Black students who went to school there.
Totally. So I feel like no matter where you choose to go to school, especially if you're making the decision to live there, you have a responsibility to like positively engage with that community.
Exactly.
Because you chose this as your new home, and there are people who already live here. And I think with Temple and a lot of other places where gentrification is really the way that these institutions are like existing in these communities, you should take your cues from the people that live there. You should take your cues from the people that live there and have lived there for many years now. You know, junior year, I lived on, so if you're going, a lot of these like city schools, especially in Philadelphia, there's like plopped right in the middle of like residential neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So when you live off campus, you're living on a street where your neighbors may have lived there for their whole lives.
Yep.
These are people, this is their community. And it's the street that I lived on, shout out to 18th and Booth. It was really mixed with students and folks who have lived there their whole lives.
Yeah,
and
I've lived next to families with children.
Right. And it was such a nice and welcoming block where they, the people who had already lived there made it a point to introduce themselves in the beginning and sternly but friendly let us know, here on this street, we take care of our block. We take pride in what we do here. We have a lot of pride in our neighborhood, and we just want that same, you live here now too, like show us that same respect. And we had a beautiful relationship with our neighbors and never felt unsafe for all of these things. So, you're not moving into like these places that don't have a history and have people who already live here.
Exactly.
And
so, like finding your community. Yeah. Like finding your community is really about like, before you choose to go to a place, learn about what that city is like.
Exactly.
A lot of people that transfer end up transferring a lot of the time because they don't like the city that their school exists in.
For anyone going to any college, you gotta love the place where you're gonna live. So even
especially if you're choosing to live there,
if you're thinking about moving away for college, and I moved to Philadelphia, Camille moved to Philadelphia, but Camille and I both lived close to Philadelphia growing up, so we knew the city prior. Mariah did not.
I did not.
Mariah.
So I think that if you're going to move away, far away, you've got to think about the city you're going to live in. Because in retrospect, when I was 18, I applied to some schools that were in Michigan, Texas. I applied all over the place because what I was looking at was schools that had a department that I was interested in, that had a program that I was interested in. Great. That's important. It's important to look into the coursework, the professors, the program, if you think you know what major you want. But in retrospect, like, good God, I did not want to live in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
No, you did not. No.
Right there. I'm a city boy. I am a Philly boy. Live in Los Angeles now. Don't know how that happened, but I am a Philly boy and I love Philadelphia. So thank God I went to school there because.
But in terms of like Matthew was saying, and same with Cynthia, like I went to a state school in my state where a lot of other people that I knew also went there. That's a really, a lot of people have that situation. Make an effort to meet new people because a lot of people from my high school ended up going to the same college as me. And I watched a lot of them stick together throughout that. And it was great to connect with them too. It was like a nice home comfort. But I got the most out of my experience by meeting new people and not just gravitating toward those people that are kind of there as like a safety net or people that I've already known.
Yeah. I know for me too, because I grew up like near Philadelphia, even though like I had a lot of friends that went to Temple throughout my college experience, I only really regularly talked to about 2 or 3 of them. Everybody else was students from other schools, other areas, other cities. And I think that was when I was like, okay, and I felt the most enriched through my college experience.
Absolutely. I think for me, one of the biggest things I was looking for was how do I get away from home? I was like, I want to go as far away as possible. I didn't want to go to my local state school because everyone I knew was going to go there. And I feel very fortunate to be one of the very few people who can say I never in college ran into anybody I went to high school with. But another thing, and speaking to what, we've all touched on about living in a community that's considered dangerous, living in a community that's considered, oh my God, this is North Philadelphia. I remember first weekend there, my OWL team leader, who is our orientation leader at our school because we're the Temple Owls or whatever. And they were talking about, okay, so you got to stay away from this block and this block and this block after a certain time because it gets real dangerous. And it went on to be all the blocks that I lived on when I went to Temple. And for me, that kind of verbiage, that kind of rhetoric never really scared me because I'm from the South Side of Chicago. So like I tell you, like that, it doesn't scare me when someone says this is a dangerous neighborhood because I know in reality that's you have a very whitewashed view of what dangerous is. And so for me, that's not, it wasn't ever a thing about hearing because at every turn it was North Philadelphia is dangerous, North Philadelphia is dangerous, North Philadelphia is dangerous. Yeah. And I'm like, lots of communities are dangerous. It would be dangerous for me if I went and was walking on the Upper East Side. I'd probably get killed. But it wasn't. So I took that with a grain of salt. Like I wasn't worried about the danger. I wasn't worried about I met people, and this is another thing moving into what we're talking about next about self-care and growth and things and just discovery. For me, it was such a learning experience before we, I just remember meeting people who had never taken a bus. Who never took the bus. And they were
what is that?
And then when I had lived there for a while, there were friends who were still like, wait, you take the bus to work? I'm like, the bus is right outside my house. You think I'm going to walk all the way to the center? The bus goes right to where I work. And they're like, the bus is so dangerous. I can't take the bus and all this shit. And I'm like, that's really you are actively resisting this city. You are actively resisting this community when you're excluding all these things because you think they're dangerous, when you're excluding all these things because you think something about it without ever once experiencing it. The point is that I want to make here is just about not resisting change. Not resisting change when you move away to this community, and the expectations that you have, they're fair because they're all the ones that your friends, your guidance counselor, all your teachers, everything that's ever been shown on television and film, they put into your head. So it's fair. But I want you to just know that it's not going to be like that for you. And so don't try and go into it with the mindset of these are the people, these are my people, and try and imprint on people who you may not even like. People, because there's this whole thing about when you're in college about these are the cool, or when you're in high school about these are the cool kids, these are the blah, 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 this or that. And then you realize when you get to college,
it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter anymore because of how varied everyone's interests become. So that whole thing gets muddied and it gets it's not as clear cut as it used to be. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the fact that it's going to change and it's going to become something that you have never experienced. Because if you fight it, it's going to make your experience so hard. When I was fighting, making new friends, I was literally first semester, I'm just going to go back home. I'm going to go back home with my real friends. I don't like any of this. I don't know any of these people. I don't like nothing they're talking about. I need to get up out of here. I cannot deal with it. And it was because I just hadn't let in all that change. But once I started to do that and I started to put myself out there, I started to set goals for myself and set boundaries. And I'd like for us to shift the conversation, if we could, to talking about how setting boundaries for yourself, how setting goals and expectations, and that can be financially, academically, socially, personally, how that really morphed your college experience.
I don't think I set boundaries until my last year. I really don't think I did. But it was
sometimes you lose it. Sometimes you lose it. But hey.
I definitely lost it. And I think because I was a commuter, I had that FOMO where I was like, I need to be as involved as possible. So I was showing up to everything. And I didn't realize how tired that was making me because a lot of kids were walking 15 minutes to their apartments. And I was taking a 45-minute train back to my parents' house. And I still had to drive another 15 minutes home. Like that will tire you out on top of studying. And I was working 30 hours a week. It was the whole thing. So I think my senior year, that's when I was like, okay, I know I like to go out, but I'm only going to maybe go out once or twice a month because going out every weekend, I'm exhausted because I had to work a 10-hour shift the next day at 8:30 in the morning, all the way back in the suburbs. And then I think another thing too is understanding like what your rest is and what you need to actually feel rested. Like I know for me, it's like maybe one day in a month, I just don't pick up my phone. I put it off to the side. I don't look at it for maybe like 6 or 7 hours and like that'll replenish me. But I also know I'm extroverted. So I like to go out. Hence why I was like, okay, I'll go out like once or twice a month, have like a sleepover once a week, go from there. And then a lot of times my friends would be like, oh, come out with us. And I'd be like, oh, my mom needs help back home. But in reality, I'm just exhausted or I just want to study in peace. Yeah. It was an out. Like commuting, if you commute and you live at your parents' house or something, you have an automatic out of anything you don't want to do. It's amazing. Because you can be like, yo, my dad, like I need to help him build something and just be gone.
Great.
And
Camille,
no one would question it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I would love to hear from you about this, Camille.
Oh yeah. Setting boundaries. Don't do stuff that you do not want to do. Like I remember like second semester freshman year having this revelation and like I was like, if I just stop and think really quick, if I actually like how is this gonna make me feel before I do it? Taking that little second of thought before doing some things really like always so grateful for it. Like I remember during freshman year, a lot of times, especially in the beginning, in this quest to like make friends or like find new people, I was like going out to a lot of stuff and doing a lot of things where I wasn't having fun and like was definitely just doing stuff that I like thought I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
And then feeling like lame after, like feeling really not good. And I ended up finding I spent a lot of my time in the shout out to Johnson and Hardwick. I spent a lot of my time in that basement.
11th floor, J&H.
I spent like every night hanging out in the basement with these people who were like my people, became my friends, like people who I'm still friends with today. And I don't like, remember I was saying like I was resisting that because I was like, I should be going out. Like I should be doing this. Like I should not just be sitting in this basement every night. But then I was finding like, this is the most fun part of my day whenever I do this.
Yep.
And like, these people are starting to become people who like, these are the people who are like when I was having a rough time, like these people are taking care of me.
Right.
These people are like treating me the way that I want to be treated. And I feel good when I'm with them. I should be following that and listening to that. And
That's so important. That's so important to like listen to not only like your instinct, but like your body. Such an instinctual thing of when you're afraid, you go like who are the people who you're around that are making you go like, I need to be away. Even if they're the people you think you should be hanging around, how is your body reacting to your environment? I learned that I was most comfortable when it was just me and all my girls, all my mostly black friends, when we were just chilling and I didn't have to censor myself. But when I was like out at parties with my roommates at ZBT or at AE Pot, yikes at AE Pie, where I'm like, one of these people is going to say nigger and I'm going to start fighting. Or are they even going to let me in? Are they going to serve me drinks? There are all these other things that come with it about being in these spaces that are mostly white, very straight spaces, very straight male aggressive spaces for me that made me feel like this is where I should be, but I don't want to be here. And I fought that so hard. And so I hated partying. And like for me to hate I don't do that. I love the club. Right. That's my place. So, but it has to be with the right people who make you literally feel good, and I mean that physically. So I had to set those boundaries for myself of I can't go into, because it takes a toll on you when you do. It really takes a physical toll on you when you're in spaces that make you feel physically uncomfortable. So I had to set boundaries for myself that I wasn't going to enter spaces that made me feel like my body was like a hindrance to it.
Yeah.
And if it feels like something is off for you, like, again, there's going to be ebb and flow. Things are going to change, and it's going to be touch and go, and you're going to change throughout college, before, during, and after. And that's okay. Like, when I first got to school my freshman year, I was like, I had so much energy, and I was like,
and we all?
I was kind of down, honestly, down to be with people a lot of the time, and to go out to parties all the time. And
Matthew had frosted tips, guys. Woo!
Yeah,
I remember that.
I was very blonde, and that was fun. And then I sort of like lost balance and lost sight of like what my goals were and what I was doing. I think my freshman year was all fine, but then in my sophomore year, I started to just lose my way a little bit.
I think that's what sophomore year is, honestly.
Yeah. So my freshman year, I feel like I had a lot of energy to be very extroverted, and I sort of just went along with that, and it served me. And then in my sophomore year, I guess I kind of just like started to burn out, and that like made me start falling off academically, and like even just like my energy and like my overall like health. Not that I was like ill, but just like mentally, it kind of felt like I was in a bit of a fog. But there was also a lot of joy in my life too. I liked my friends a lot. I was with a boyfriend who I really, really loved, and that was like a great relationship and a great part of my life. But still, there was just like something, I don't know, had a lot of joy and a lot of time to myself. And I was back living at home at my parents' house, which for me, I have the privilege of saying I feel very safe and comfortable and supported there. So I just kind of recharged. And then I don't know if it was super conscious, but after the first 2 years of college, I kind of found my boundaries and my routine and how I took care of myself. And when I started my junior year, I kind of was just like adulting in a way that felt good to me. Allow yourself time to like reflect. If you're not feeling so great and you go out every weekend, then maybe like try taking a couple weekends off and just seeing if that feels good for you. Or like if you spend a lot of time alone and that's not feeling good, and try consciously like making some social plans and seeing how that feels for you. It's all just this grand experiment of figuring out.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, like, your needs change and your self-care is going to look different as you change. Yes. Like me personally, like I know for a lot of folks, self-care looks like relaxation, looks like R&R, looks like that type of thing. I don't have an issue relaxing. I relax a little too easily. Like, give me permission to relax and I'll relax for a year and then be like, wait, what? So like for me, self-care was, let me start this paper early. Let me set myself up to be in positions where I'm not gonna have a meltdown.
Right.
Self-care meant I don't want to be at this party anymore. I'm just gonna leave now.
Oh, I love an Irish exit. I leave without saying goodbye.
I was the queen of an Irish goodbye. The queen.
If you don't know, if you're watching, you don't know what an Irish exit is. Sometimes, and everybody can attest to this about me. My like famous line, you know, they always ask like, what is that one thing you say when you're drunk that you know that you're drunk? For me, it's when all my friends start screaming, "Where's Mariah?" And that's because I've gone. That's because I've left. I've gone. I've gotten so drunk that I've gone home. So what an Irish exit is, you just leave without saying goodbye. Yeah. You know how you're like, hey, bye, bye, bye. Well, I've never liked that shit. I hate saying goodbye to people. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be in this space anymore. I'm just going to go away. I'm just going to not be here anymore. And I've never not made it home. My friends will always wake up the text message of like, where did you go? And I'm like, girl, I went to Philly style pizza and then I went to lay in my bed. That's what I did. That is what I did.
And that was it.
But I think that's like, it's very important, like what you mentioned, Camille, and what you're talking about, Matthew, about reflecting, about growing with grace, because your self-care is going to change. What you are going to do is change. Like I remember, and then we can get into this next thing, which I think is very important. Like I've been overweight my entire life. It has always been a thing. It has always been an issue with everybody but me, until they made it my issue. They made it my issue. Their uncomfortability made it a thing that I had to deal with. And so I always like struggle with like working out and dieting, all that dumb shit. So but for me, food has always been a coping mechanism. So when I was going away to college, and I don't really have good eating habits because they weren't ever set for me. Sorry, Mom, but you know what it is. We kept McDonald's in business. So, like for me, it was kind of like the thing of, I have all this freedom now, so I'm going to eat pizza every single day. And then I'm just going to go and I'm going to eat pizza. I'm going to eat all this good takeout food. So for me, the issue was that I had no boundaries when I went into college because I was like, I'm just going to take in everything. And then what happened was I gained 30 pounds freshman year and I felt so horrible about myself. But I felt horrible about myself because I had all these preconceived notions about being fat and about how that made me undesirable. But then I met all these fat women who were getting laid, who were very happy with themselves and all this good shit. They wore all these clothes. So then what happened was I had to take that time to reflect on how do I feel about myself? How do I feel about my body? How do I feel about it? Not at all related to all of the things that have come up until this point, Just like me sitting here as Mariah taking stock. And I love myself. I have never had a problem with having confidence in myself. That has never been my issue personally. It's other people's issue that I have maybe too much confidence in myself, but that's their problem. And that should always be their problem and not your problem.
It is their problem. Yeah. And you know what? I will say that like fat phobia is racist because
it absolutely is racist. It's 100% racist. But even before we get into that, one of the things, I'm sorry. I wanted to finish this one thing that I was saying about what I had to do to change my habits because I wasn't on the most healthy track. I said, okay, I want to challenge myself. I want to start running. And Mariah was never a runner. I used to, when we had to run the mile in high school, I used to cut through the gym and come back out on the other side because I refused to run an entire mile. That's slavery. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. I was always the last to finish the mile.
No,
and I'd be like
real.
a minute behind the person that was in front of me.
No,
like I was
real. But the thing is then I was like, okay, like we have to start taking steps toward becoming your best self. And then I got so used to it that it became such an ingrained part of me. Like if I love running. I love it so much. I haven't run at all this month because it's so hot in LA and I don't want to die. But the point is this is like, I always compare my journey with self-care, especially through college, to what I feel like, to my journey with running, to my relationship to running. And I always say this to anybody who's about to start running is like, yes, it's hard. Yes, it hurts. It never stops being hard and it never stops hurting. I'm going to be honest. Olympic runners have said it's hard and it hurts. Even the easy runs, sometimes they're hard and they hurt. But the thing about it is you change. And all of a sudden, that pain becomes so familiar that it doesn't stop you in your tracks. So you don't turn around and quit. You just go through it because you know what's on the other side of that pain. So you have to go through the uncomfortable parts of growth because of what's on the other side of it. So you have to let they call it growing pains for a reason. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I still hate running. I've tried.
That's fair. That's fair. Which I don't get, Kenya, which I don't get because you're Kenyan, but
my mom runs marathons. I can barely run 5K. It is what it is. But like you said, with finding out what works best for you, like I also gained 20 to 30 pounds my freshman year because of FOMO. All my friends would go out to eat. I would tag along, even though I was paying more because I didn't have a meal plan. But that's for another episode. But I gained so much weight, and it was because I was not doing any of the like activities physically that I was doing in high school and things like that.
Right.
And also just eating like garbage food in general. So I stopped eating that food, and then I found this actual YouTuber that did like fun little dance vids to popular songs. And I did that like every single day for a summer, and I lost all that weight. And to this day, I still do his videos because it's the only workout I found for me that's fun that I can keep up with, because I tried running for 2 summers. Never again. I'm done.
The advice that I would give to anybody who is kind of stuck in their head about their weight, their health, any of that is, and I know this is going to sound corny, and it's also, I'm just going to say now, like an easier said than done type of thing, but
I still think
worth being said is like, what if you lived into the possibility of like, there's no such thing as food being good or bad. It's just food, release the judgment. What if you lived into the possibility of there's no such thing as good or bad weight? It's just body mass, and you can take up as much space as you want, and you are still a good person. And also, like, what if you just lived into like, I'm going to eat when I'm hungry? It might
What a
be
concept! What a concept!
Sometimes it might be pizza, and sometimes it might be something green. Sometimes it might be pizza with something green on top of it. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that like, you're a person, you have to eat, and like, it's as simple as that. And it's not as simple as that because we live in a fat phobic country, and fat phobia is white supremacy because it is celebrating a Eurocentric white beauty standard in terms of looks and shape and proportions. And that's fucked up. And that's something that you're going to have to, live in conflict with. But I think that the way to find peace is to just like consciously remind yourself of those things of like, there is no good or bad way to eat or look or be.
Mm-hmm.
Just like try to like be intentional about having those beliefs and reminding yourself. I do think that helps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to speak to like physical health in terms of like making your doctor's appointment and like and like changing your pharmacy, like especially if you're making the choice to live somewhere new. Like I said, you're gonna have a lot of power now. And I think one of the best things I ever did for myself was find a like even I didn't live that far away from home, but I found a doctor's office in Center City that I could easily get to. My mom was one of those moms who was like, oh, no, you'll be making your own appointments now. You're 18.
Yep.
But me personally, like I ride high on knowing I'm healthy. So I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go to the doctor and get this checkup so they can tell me I'm good.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like student health services. If your campus has it, those are services that you are paying for.
Yes.
Yeah. So feel free to use them. If you go just to get some health services done, keep in mind that, if your healthcare situation is through your family, that whatever you might be getting done here at Student Health Services today could easily become information to them. So that's something to keep in mind if like you're not trying to have all that. I'm almost positive your school can't say anything, but your health insurance
can't, but
your health insurance will let you know.
Yeah,
there's might be a bill going to your parents' house with all the tests you got done and all that stuff.
Right.
So just stuff to keep in mind. Like that's something now that to take responsibility for as well.
Yeah.
You're paying for those resources on your campus, so use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also because you're 18, you need to start taking charge of your own health because no one's going to hold your hand like your parents or your pediatrician, because technically in the eyes of the law, you're a grown up. So it's important to understand what your health insurance covers, where it's covered, your deductible, all that thing, like when your last checkup was, get all your files from all your previous doctors, like have them in a centralized place. That's going to be super important. And also keep track politically about what's going to happen. Because when I started college, Trump was about to come into office. And I knew I needed birth control for health reasons.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to make the move. So it's very important to like take note of exactly what you have, when you have it, when it's up, if it only lasts to a certain age. All of that's very important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want us. Wow, I can't believe we've talked about so much, and we're about to close out this first episode of this. But it's been such a good conversation. But I do want us. So what I want to do then, how I want to close this out, I just want like tell us. It doesn't have to be like a whole paragraph or anything. Just like how you made it out alive.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that, like, I made it out of college due to my privilege. I'm white, I'm cis male, I had parents who supported me emotionally and financially. So, like, that is part of how I made it out alive. And like, I think that right now, part of my work is recognizing that those privileges were afforded to me, and those same privileges reflect obstacles that other people have. So if I'm going to be serious about doing work to create equity among people who are young people who are entering college, who are in different situations and different demographics, then I need to start unpacking like what those obstacles are more and what can be done to, remove those obstacles for people of color who are entering college, for people from different financial backgrounds entering college. That being said, I also think that how I got through it was doing yoga.
Okay.
A complete 180. I started doing yoga in college, and that really helped me make it out alive. That's just me.
Okay. Camille, do you want to go?
Yeah. My parents were also like supporting me through this with money they did not have, which is why you're going to hear me emphasizing how much like it was never lost on me how expensive this whole situation was. And like, because of that, it was very important to me to get the most out of it, which I sometimes still don't even think I did. But it was very important to me to make sure that I was enjoying it. I didn't have to live on campus. I easily could have commuted, and my sister actually did. And my mom she wanted me to have an experience that wasn't afforded to her. And knowing that and keeping that in mind was always something that like steered me in some of the directions I went in. Also yoga. I was doing yoga every day, and it was like, and that was after trying a bunch of different stuff. So mostly just like listening to myself, taking the time to check in and be like, okay, do we like what we are doing here? Do we feel like all this money that we don't actually have is being spent wisely? Like, so yeah, just staying in touch with myself, being self-aware.
That's important.
Yeah.
All right, Cynthia.
How did I make it out alive?
How'd you make it out?
Treating myself to a cup of juice, like literally like orange juice, cranberry juice, grapefruit juice, whenever I needed it. Just something like low nutrition, just get me through the day. A little relief. But honestly, there were so many things in my life that were up in the air in college that I couldn't control. So one thing that helped me get out was knowing all the nitty-gritty details of everything that, even if I couldn't control, just understanding what it was. Like my student loans, I read the entire terms and conditions and also every single detail in that contract that they tell you to read before you sign the line that most people don't. I know all of the details within that. I went to the nitty gritty and I understood everything. That way I can make decisions based off of what I had. That way the decisions I made were as smart as possible and the decisions that would work the best for me. So I think that's how I made it out alive, was even though there was a lot of things I couldn't control, I could at least control how much knowledge of the things around me I had.
Yeah, that's very important.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So how I made it out alive. I think because I do think I struggled to find my footing along the way, especially at the beginning. But for me, what it took was coming into my own and taking up space. I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me make it out alive. And then the other thing is like my tribe, my friends, like my people. I would not have made it out alive without having them around me. Not one, just always hyping me up. Like, even though I truly am my own best hype man every single day of the week. But sometimes you want that, you need that, but also just like them keeping me grounded, being like, you're being a bitch. or you're being ridiculous, or girl, don't text him back. Not to say that I didn't do it, but it was so important.
Right.
It's so important to have that community. To me, that was the biggest thing. Like, I value my friendships as deeply as I value my family. So if you are lucky enough to be able to call me a friend, like all of you find people here like that, I want you to know, and I think it's important for everybody out there to know how deeply how much that means to some people, because not a lot of people, and I have had friends, especially a lot of my friends who are queer, they don't have those kinds of relationships with their family. And I'm not, this isn't to say that like I have the closest relationship with my family, but I'd never was ousted like some queer people have been, and in our next episode, that is what we're going to be talking to a lot of queer people about, their experiences. But for me, like, friends are like family, and without them like always being as close to me as family is, I don't know if I would have made it. So thank you to whoever watches this. I want to say one more time, my name is Mariah. And again, you can find this video at Textured Air and also at texturedair.com. You can find this on our YouTube page at Textured Air, and you can follow us on Instagram at Textured Air and on Twitter at the same handle. My personal Instagram is Mariah. You spell it like you just spell Mariah Carey in Woods on all platforms. So you got Matthew.
Yes. You can also find this at cannedgoodsmag.com, and I'll be posting about it on my social at Matthew Janis.
Okay.
This is so lit.
Yeah. Do you guys want to plug your socials?
Yeah, sure. You can find me everywhere at Happy Meal. My name is Camille. Like, I thought it was very obvious, but over the years, many people have been like, "What are you trying to say with that?"
I've always gotten it.
Yeah, so just Happy Meal, like you would regularly spell it with a CA in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
Find me on Instagram, post pics. Find me on Twitter, being the funniest person alive.
That's true. It's true.
I'm just grateful to be a guest on this, honestly. But yeah, if you feel the need to follow me, I really don't post that often. But my handles are just at Cynthia Wambua.
All right. So we'll see you. Well, not us, but you'll see some other people next time.
Yeah.